Namo Buddhaya. Good morning, everyone. Welcome and welcome back to another video. From today's video, we are going to discuss about the practice of merit in Buddhism. Now, the word that is given to the merit in Pali text is punya. Now, the Buddha describes this punya in many ways. Now, in one place, the Buddha describes that there are three streams of accumulating merits, and there are three streams of merits to life. One is being dana, the generosity, giving, sila, living the life in a virtuous way, and bhavana, the meditation. So Buddha mainly describes these are the three practices and these are the three streams of merits to life. But the practice of merit is one of the most underappreciated practices in Buddhism, specifically when it comes to the Western approach of Buddhism. It may seem like a sensible thinking because this practice may seem like a little bit deviating from the core concepts like non-self and letting go in Buddhism. But the practice of merit is one of the things that even the Buddha had appreciated. So if the Buddha appreciated it, if the master appreciated it, then there is no reason that we can see that we can deny the practice of merit. Now, the reason why the Buddha emphasized the practice of merit is because it is like a good foundation for the spiritual practice, right? For an example, if someone practices giving, right, he practices a form of selflessness, like letting go, so that it gives the rise, it gives the spark to let go in a higher way, like a higher state, right? So the Buddha says that practice these three streams of merit and develop a good foundation of spirituality. And with that foundation of spirituality, with that good foundation of spirituality, you can achieve the higher states of spirituality. So that is why the Buddha emphasized the practice of merit in Buddhism, so that we cannot say that you should not practice merit, right? I have seen a lot of people that deny the practice of merit. They say like, oh, we should not practice merits, we should let go of that, and we should always focus on the selflessness and vipassana and non-self. But here's the thing, without that foundation, how can we build up a good spiritual practice? How can we achieve the higher states of spirituality? And that is why the Buddha says, practice this merit. So simply, what is merit? Merit are the actions that we do with the good intentions, like generosity, compassion, loving kindness, and these actions leads to the wholesome states of mind. And the more we practice this, the more wholesome our mind become, right? So the point of practice of merit is to keep the mind in a wholesome state, right? The more we do it, the mind tend to turn towards the wholesome side of the mind, right? That is why we practice this merit. And also, there are many ways to do that, right? By giving, you can practice merit, right? By being selfless and putting yourself into service towards others can accumulate merits. And also by living a virtuous life can accumulate merit. And by meditating, giving loving kindness, showing compassion, there are lots of ways to accumulate merits to life, right? And if we do that, we can become a good human. Simply the point of practicing the merit is to simply become a human with good intentions and a human with a wholesome heart. So the practice of merit is crucial in Buddhist practice, and do not deny it, right? Keep on practicing it, and it lays you a good foundation for all of your spiritual practices. So keep this little advice in your mind and practice this merit and make your life beautiful. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome and welcome back to another video. From today's video, we're going to discuss about one of the major problems that we go through in our mind when it comes to the stress and anxiety. And that is the what if scenarios, the catastrophizing of mind. Now, this state of mind can affect for many people, and they suffer a lot when these kind of thought patterns hit their mind, right? So what if scenarios are like, you imagine all the worst case scenarios in your mind. Like, what if that happened to me? What if everything went wrong? What if they're cheating me? What if the people all around are up to no good? So we expect and we create these scenarios in our mind, and we suffer in it. Okay. And our brain is pretty good at creating these scenarios in our mind, right? So that is why we need to learn how to deal with these kind of thoughts when they come into our mind. Not every time we get these kind of thoughts, but when there are certain times that we get these kind of mental states, and it's very painful, and people suffer a lot in these kind of thought patterns. And this is where the Buddhist practice of mindfulness comes in handy, right? In Buddhist practice, we call mindfulness as sati. Sati is the bringing your mind to this present state and understanding the reality as it is, right? So when you understand the true nature of reality, when you understand that everything, every experience, every mental state has one intrinsic nature, and that is changing. Every mental state, every experience is subjected to changing, right? But before doing that, there are certain things that we need to understand, and we need to think and practice to deal with these kind of catastrophizing thoughts, right? These what if scenarios. The first practice, we need mindfulness to understand this, because we need to catch this thought, right? Without you catching this thought and understanding and realizing this thought, you cannot do anything, right? You cannot deal with anything that you don't understand about. So the first step is to know that you're in the mental state of catastrophizing, right? What if scenarios. So the first step is to understand and challenge your thought, right? How to challenge your thoughts. Now, in this practice, we need mindfulness. We need to catch this thought, right? And understand as it is. And then ask the question from yourself that, is this the reality, or is this just another distortion of my mind about the reality of the life, right? Because the mind and our brain can distort the reality in many ways. It can create many scenarios, but in reality, the problem is very, very little. Right? Sometimes there is no problem. I've seen this a lot of times in mind, that when we don't have much things to worry about, right? When the life goes smoothly, we worry about even about the little things in life. Okay? So that is why first we need to understand, is this reality, or is this another distortion of my mind about the reality? Right? When you understand this, when you come to this present moment and understand what reality is, then you find that there are very few things that we need to worry about, and many things, right? 99% of what we go through is just another distortion of our mind, right? So challenging your thought is very important when you deal with these kinds of mental states. And once you understand the reality, now then you can ask from yourself that, what can I do about it? Is there anything that is under my control that I can take some actions to change this state, right? And then you understand that there are certain things in life that are under your control and that are not under your control, that are out of your control. So then you have to realize that the things that are under your control is totally worth worrying and totally worth taking actions. And the things that are not under your control, we don't have anything to do about it. And also we can't change that state. So what we can do is we can accept it, right? Once you realize the reality, one thing that you can do is to understand what is in your control and what is not in your control. And that is the next thing that you have to do. And once you understand the present state of mind, now you can add a little mindful practice to your life, right? Such as breathing meditation, right? A mindful in breath and out breath will help you to relieve your stress. Okay, this is something the Buddha introduced us to do, and Buddha emphasizes to do, to stop the chattering of your mind, to stop this restlessness of your mind. Because once you're in these kind of mental states, one thing that happens to your mind is you become restless. So a mindful breathing practice will help you to relieve the anxiety and relieve the stress from your mind and become more peaceful and calm. And there's another practice that you can do, and this is not directly mentioned in Buddhism, but you can set a time to worry about things, right? So what you have to do when the worryings and when these regrets and these kind of thought patterns come into your mind, say to yourself, okay, wait, there is a time in my day to worry about these things. So wait until that. I will wait until that. And when that time comes, I will do my worrying. I will do my regretting. So what you do, you set an alarm to yourself that I will worry in the future. So then set a maybe time period during the day that you sit down and think, okay, what is there in my mind and in my life to worry about, right? And to check the reality. And then you spend a good time. You don't spend that time worrying and regretting. You spend that time analyzing and not overthinking, but analyzing and realizing about the reality of the life and the present state of life, so that you find there are very few things to worry about in life. And all the other things that our mind has created inside our mind are just nothing but distortions of reality. So these are the few practices that you can add to your life whenever you get these kind of thought patterns. Practicing these tips will help you to ease up your mental state. So practice this and make your mind peaceful and calm. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. If you take a healthy seed and plant it in an infertile pot or infertile soil, what will happen to the seed? Slowly by slowly, it will start to die. It will never grow. The problem was not in the seed. The problem was in the environment. Same goes with our life. Although we are good people, although we have good qualities inside us, the environment or the people around us can affect the good qualities and can affect our inner values. And that is why in Buddha's teachings, the biggest amount of focus is given for the people who we associate. At one time, Venerable Ananda asked from the Buddha, says to the Buddha, I think half of this Buddhist practice depends on who we associate, or half of the Buddhist practice depends on good friends. Then the Buddha said, Ananda, do not say that. Ananda, the full Buddhist practice, the fullest Buddhist practice depends on, the whole Buddhist practice depends on having good friends and having better friends. In Buddhism, we call them Kalyana Mitta, the noble friends. So who are noble friends? Noble friends are the friends who they direct you to do good things and to be a better person and to cultivate the inner values like love, compassion, patience, and practicing the Dharma. All these things, the people who help you to develop these things. So in the Buddha's teachings, having good friends around you is considered as a blessing to your life. The Buddha says this in Mahamangala Sutta. The Buddha says, Asevana cha balanang panditanang cha sevana etam mangala muttamang. That means the Buddha said, do not associate with people with lower qualities. Associate with people with higher good qualities. Okay, having a good association with people who have higher values and higher qualities will help you to improve in your life. And that is why in the Buddha's teachings, a major focus is given to the people who we associate. Even in the monks community, when we are living with monks, monks live in one in one aim, with the one aim to practice the inner qualities like love and compassion, sharing, meditations, and spiritual practice. When you're being around such a community, it is very easy for you to practice it. Now, when I began the practice of the monkshood, it was a challenge for us to practice these qualities like meditation. For an example, it was very difficult to meditate in the beginning, but we had group meditations. That means our senior monks meditated with us. Okay, we were sitting with the senior monks and we were meditating, and we see from the beginning of our monkhood, we saw that our senior monks are meditating for hours and hours, and that inspired us to meditate. So, having and being with a community of people who are like minded and being with people who can help you to improve is a blessing for all of our life. Now, when I say this, I know the question that comes to your mind. How can I have people around me that helps me to improve? Okay, because I live in a toxic environment. Maybe you're living in a toxic environment. Now, that is the problem that we most of the other people have, right? And then you may ask, like, I am living in a toxic environment, so how can I find good friends and how can I find people who are going to help me? Well, I know we don't get the exact environment that we expect all the time. There will be always toxic people around us. There will be always unfavorable environments around us. Okay? But from time to time, we get into contact with people with better qualities and better people and with higher values. And do not lose that association. Connect with them, be with them, inspired, get inspired with them, and then associate. Keep associating those people from time to time. The more you associate them, the more you develop the inner qualities. It's something like this. If you grow a plant in a little pot, right? For an example, if you take a bonsai plant, it grows in a little pot, right? So the environment is limited, the soil is limited. Okay, so what happens to the tree? It doesn't grow much. Okay, it start to grow slowly, but because of the environment, because the roots are stuck in that little amount of soil. What will happen if just one root came out of that pot and got connected with the ground? What will happen? The tree starts to grow. Same like that. If you get one connection, just one connection with a better person or a better person who has good qualities and who can help you, you should not lose that connection, right? You have to be connected with that person and you have to grow, and that will help you to grow in your life. So then the environment that you live in will not matter to you because you have that valuable connection with that one person. Okay, and that is why we need to choose the people who we associate wisely, because who we are the people who we associate. And that is why they say that you are the average of 5 people who you associate. Just look around the people who are living with you. Okay, just look around the people who you share your life and see you're the average of those 5 people who are very close to you. So that is why we need to be very wise and very keen when we pick friends and when we pick people to associate. And if you got just one connection with a person who has better qualities and good qualities that who can help you to improve, never lose that connection. Be connected with that person and improve yourself. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to another video. Today, from this video, I'm going to be answering one of the most practical questions that I get asked about meditation. And that is, what should I do when my legs go numb? Or what should I do when my legs go sleep? Now, this is one common feeling that we all feel when starting to meditate. Especially for beginners, when they're not used to the meditation or meditation posture, they might get this feeling of legs going numb and not feeling their legs. And sometimes you get even the pins and needle feeling in your legs. So most of the time, the beginners get so much afraid of this feeling, and they say, like, it's difficult and something that is not usual and not, this is not pleasant. I can't do this. But here's the thing, this numbness and this legs falling asleep and this pins and needle feeling is not something that is related to meditation. It is related to the posture. This feeling happens when your nerves get extra pressure. One of the mistakes that most of the people do is, as soon as they feel the numbness in their legs, they change the posture. Because when you change the posture, the numbness go away. But here's one thing happen. When you change the posture and go for another posture, even in that posture, you will start to feel the numbness because of the extra pressure on your nerves. So rather than changing the posture, one thing that you can do is to be a little bit mindful about the pain. Okay, watch the pain and how you feel it and observe it. And then when you stay for a little while with this pain and numbness, gradually it will start to go away because your body get used to this posture. Okay, and when you stay for a little while and when you stay for a long period of time in that posture, then now you are getting used to stay in meditation, sitting meditation, in sitting postures for a long time. Okay, that is one of the main things and main skills that we have to develop in meditation, is to sit for a long time and enjoying sitting for a long time, because sitting is one of the most difficult things, and just to focus on your breath is one of the most difficult things that people find to do, because your mind, and we like to be distracted and we like to do a lot of things but not a one thing, right? So it is much better to stay in your posture and be mindful about that numbness or this pain or that pins and needleness in your legs, and pretty sure after a little while the numbness will go away. Okay, but if you keep changing the posture, you will never get the practice and your body will never get used to these postures. So this is the solution for your legs to go fall asleep or go numb, or you feel this pins and needleness. So stay for a little while in the meditation and observing and being mindful about this numbness in your legs, and then it will gradually go away. But if the conditions and if these feelings prevail for a long time, maybe there's another problem with your body about this feeling. So what you can do is you can simply change the posture, but if only this pain or this feeling prevails for a long time only. But if not, just be mindful about it and observe it, and then you will see that the pain and numbness will go away. Keep practicing meditation. Namo Buddhaya. One of the core teachings that we find in Buddhism is to understand the pain and suffering as a part of life, and also to see the suffering and the pain as it is. But this is easier said than done, okay? Because most of the time, when we go through painful feelings and painful situations in life, we used to worry, we used to become frustrated, and we fall down mentally. But the Buddha offers us a different way of thinking, to see this pain and to see this suffering, to use that experience to add more meaning to our life. So today, let's talk about how can we move through painful situations in life according to Buddhism. The Buddha gives a wonderful simile for this. The Buddha says, suppose they were to strike a man with a dart, and then they would strike him immediately afterwards with a second dart, so that the man would feel a feeling caused by two darts, two arrows. When the uninstructed worldling is being contacted by a painful feeling, he feels two feelings: bodily, physical feeling, and the mental feeling, or physical suffer and mental suffer. The reason why we worry in the face of this unavoidable suffering in our life is we expect a life without suffering. But life itself has the intrinsic nature and inherent nature of suffering and pain and unsatisfied nature. So what Buddha teaches us is to see it as a part of life. Do not try to forget it. Do not try to run away from it. See it as a part of your life that always persists throughout your life. And the Buddha says that when an ordinary person goes through these feelings, to escape from this pain, what he does is he seeks delight in sensual pleasures. He chases behind sensual pleasures to distract himself. So that is the normal reaction, isn't it? Normally, when someone goes through a painful feeling, when someone goes through a difficult time in his life, they chase behind sensual pleasure to distract their brains, distract their mind from that pain. For an example, when someone is struggling in their life, if someone has pain in his mind, sometimes some people use alcohol. Some people distract them with alcohol. Some people distract them with sexual misconduct. Some people distract themselves with consuming more and more social media. These days, it is happening more and more. Okay. For an example, if you feel any pain in your life, just check your behavior. People use more and more social media. Why? To distract themselves with that pain, from that pain. But Buddha does not say that chasing behind the sensual pleasure is completely wrong. What Buddha says is that chasing behind sensual pleasure does not solve your problem completely. Why is that? So the more we chase behind sensual pleasure, the more we suffer because of the unsatisfied nature. So that is why the Buddha said, chasing behind sensual pleasure does not solve your problem completely. Why it does not solve the problem completely? Because whenever we are being struck by a miserable feeling or a painful feeling in life, now we need something material, an external source to distract ourselves all the time. Now, this does not help us to focus on ourselves and find the true nature of this problem and solve it once and forever. Okay, so that is why the Buddha said, chasing behind sensual pleasure will not completely solve your problem. Instead of chasing behind the sensual pleasure to distract ourselves, the Buddha says that look at the pain as a part of life that is unavoidable. And the Buddha says that pain is an inevitable condition in life, but worrying is an option that we choose. Worrying is always optional. So the Buddha used a special term to these ups and downs in life. He called it 8 worldly conditions. The Buddha said that these 8 worldly conditions prevails in this world every time. The Buddha says, gain and loss, dispute and fame, blame and praise, and pleasure and pain. These 8 worldly conditions revolve around the world, and the world revolves around these 8 worldly conditions. So these 8 worldly conditions are like the 2 faces of the same coin. We cannot separate it. So the Buddha says that do not worry too much, more than needed, about these painful situations in life. Rather than worrying about it, we always have the choice to stay away from worrying, because pain is an inevitable condition, but worrying is an optional thing, is a choice that we make in our life. So keep this amazing sentence in your mind. Pain is inevitable, worrying is optional. Keep that in your mind and stay strong, stay safe. Namo Buddhaya. Buddha considered the gratitude and the gratefulness as the mother of all the good qualities. In Mahamangala Sutta, the Buddha says, having a grateful mind is a blessing for your life. Okay, so how can we practice this gratitude? And what is the meaning of gratitude? Now, the word that is given to gratitude, given for the gratitude in Buddhism is called katanyuta. Katanyuta means the ability to remember what one have done to you. That means the helps that have done to you. If you can remember the people and the helps that you have given, okay, people have done to you, then that is called the gratitude. So how can we practice this? Well, you can be grateful and you can be thankful for almost everything in your life. Let's say you take your food plate to your hand. You can practice gratitude in there. How? You can be grateful for the people who made that food. Maybe your wife, maybe your husband, maybe someone who helped you. Okay? So you can be grateful for them. You can say that, thank you. Okay, genuinely you can say that, thank you. I'm grateful for you. Okay? Because of you people, I live happily and I live in comfort in my life. In every morning, okay, in every morning, take a little time to practice this gratitude in your life. Okay, wake up in the morning and say that I am thankful for my life. Okay, I am thankful for the people who lived around me, who helped me, okay, who was there with me in my life in the hardest times. And also in the same time, we can be happy about the tough times and bad people in our life too. Okay, so many people don't think about this because we become grateful for only for the good people and the good situations in our life. No, we can be grateful for the bad people and difficult situations in our life. How can we do that? Well, because of the bad people and because of the bad situations and tough situations in our life became so much interesting, right? Imagine if your life became all the things, like you got all the things you wanted, okay? And there were all the people who were good and nice to you, okay? You didn't face any tough situations in your life. There's nothing more interesting, nothing much interesting about your life. But because of the bad people and because of the tough situations and the bad days in our life became so much interesting, no? Because there's a story for us to tell. Okay, there is an interesting story for us to tell. That is why the more we face tough situations, our life becomes so much interesting. So we can be thankful for the bad people and say, like, thank you for giving me tough times. Thank you for giving me the ability to practice the patience and love and kindness and compassion for you because of you people. In that way, you can be, you see, if you think about it, you can be grateful for every situation and everything in your life. So every single day when you wake up in the morning, take a little moment to say thank you for everything and every person in your life. So keep that in your mind and practice this wonderful quality of gratitude. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. It is quite easy to be patient and to be calm when the life goes smoothly. But where our real patience comes into test is in the middle of adversity. I know it is very difficult to practice patience for all of us. It is easier to say to be patient. It is easier to advise to be patient, but it is easy to talk about patience, but to practice this quality, it is really, really challenges for every one of us. So although it is difficult, although it is challenging, we have to practice this amazing quality that brings the happiness and the calmness and peace to our life. So let's talk about how to practice patience according to Buddha's teachings. So in Buddhism, patience is considered as the greatest virtue. In Dhammapada, verse number 184, the Buddha says, patience is the highest virtue. The Buddhas say that Nibbana is supreme, and the one who harms others is not a monk, and one who destroys others is not a monk. So in Buddhism, a bigger space and a bigger value is given to the patience and to practice the patience as the practice of patience as an inner quality, not just to talk about it, not just to read about it or to learn about it, but the real practice. So in Buddhism, the greatest quality in Buddhism, the greatest virtue is considered as the patience also. So what exactly is patience? The Buddha describes this as follows. And what's the patience practice? It is when a bhikkhu endures cold, heat, hunger, and thirst. They endure the touch of flies, mosquitoes, wind, sun, and reptiles. They endure rude and unwelcome criticism, and they put up with physical pain, sharp, severe, acute, and unpleasant, disagreeable, and life-threatening. This is called the patience practice. In another sutta, the Buddha explains about the patience as follows. What is the patient practice? It is when someone abuses, annoys, or argues with you, and you don't abuse, annoy, or argue back at them. This is called the patience practice. So being able to put up with ups and downs and challenging situations and disagreeable experiences in life is called patience. But to be honest, it is really difficult to be patient. Yes, it is difficult. It is going to be difficult, and it will be always difficult. It will never be easy, because that's the nature of all good practices in life. The Buddha said, what brings the happiness to your life? To practice such qualities is the most difficult thing that you have to do in your life. But although it is difficult, we all have to practice this amazing quality of being patient. Now, in Buddhism, being silent, tolerating, and enduring everything out of fear does not mean the real patience. In Buddhism, the real patience comes with a deeper meaning of life. When someone has a deeper meaning of his life, and when someone has knows the true nature of life, then it's very easy for that person to be patient and to practice the amazing quality of patience. Normally, when we tolerate and when we become silent, the reason why we become silent is because of the fear. Sometimes we have no choice to do anything, right? In that case, we become silent. But the Buddha says that that is not the true patience. Someone can see such kind of a person and say, oh, he is patient. But that's not the true patience, because that person doesn't have the power. That person doesn't have the authority to do something, right? So being patient out of fear is not the true patience. The Buddha says about the real patience like this. In Vepachiti Sutta, it is mentioned, when a person endowed with strength patiently endures a weakling, they call that the supreme patience. The weakling must be patient always. So the real patience comes when you understand that there is the beast inside you. What is that beast? The anger. And if you're afraid of that anger, and if you're afraid of that beast to control your life, and if you can be patient in that situation by controlling your emotions and controlling your thoughts and controlling your anger and deciding to not to harm that person, that is called the true patience and the real patience. To practice such kind of a patience, you have to do a great dedication. Sometimes you have to go through a lot of hardships. You have to endure a lot. But still, why you become patient? Because you believe that being patient is the greatest virtue that you can practice in life. And you believe that you are much more better than them, and you have a better qualities than them. If you believe in that, you can truly be patient. To practice patience, the Buddha offers us a path of thinking in a more deeper level of understanding through our life. So suppose a person comes to you and treat you with rude words, right? Or treat you with their meanness. How can you avoid that situation without even worrying? How to do that? So the Buddha teaches us to look at this situation through the 3 marks of existence. So what are 3 marks of existence? So the Buddha says the 3 marks of existence are anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Impermanence, suffering, and non-self. So anicca. Anicca is the understanding about the impermanence. So the Buddha said that everything in life is subjected to change. If you look at our life, there is nothing that we can hold on to and think and find that is not subjected to change. So once you understanding this intrinsic nature or the inherent nature of impermanence, it's very easy to let go of that anger and to be patient. Because let's say someone blamed you or someone treated you with rude words, okay? Right at the moment that you heard that voice, those words, they became impermanent, right? But here's the problem. Why does we hear the same thing again and again, what they said in our mind, and we keep creating that chain of thought, and we keep creating that anger in our mind? Because the mind has the nature to recreate everything that we heard or what we experienced. Okay, so we think that they abused me, they hurt me, and they treated me with these rude words, so I should not be treated like this. But in reality, those words had been impermanent now. They have been vanished. For an example, the words that you heard from me before, now everything has been vanished. They don't exist. That's the reality of life. But once you're understanding this true and intrinsic nature of impermanence, it's very easy to let go of the anger because you don't find anything to hold on to now. What is the word that we have to hold on to now in this moment to be angry? No, it has gone. So once you understand this true nature of impermanence, it's very easy to practice patience. And the second thing that we have to understand is dukkha. Dukkha often refers to as suffering. So the Buddha said that the pain and suffering is a part of our life. So you cannot remove that. We have to face that situation, okay? Because that is the nature of living. The nature of life it is always connected or characterized by the pain or suffering. This is not to worry about the pain or the suffering, but to see it as a part of life and accept it, learn to be with it, learn to deal with it. That is how we can understand the suffering. And the final thing that we have to realize and understanding is the nature of anatta. The nature of anatta is the nature of not self or non-self, right? The Buddha says that there are things in your life that are out of your control. Not every time you're going to have everything according to your wishes. Okay, there are things that are out of our range of control. Once we understand this true nature of anatta or non-self, it is really easy to accept the truth in life. And it is very easy to not to worry about the things that we cannot control. So if you look at the life, if you look at the situations in your life, in these three marks of existence, the Buddha said that it is really easy to practice the patience. It is really easy to love people, to give your kindness to people, because we know that we are not going to last forever, and we know that they are not going to last forever. What they did was not going to last forever. What they said was not going to last forever. So we can let go of the anger and we can move on. So these are the few things and few realizations that will help us to practice the patience in your life. So keep this in your mind and be patient. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. I need to ask a question from you. Do you really exist? Now, have you ever thought of this question? It sounds like a funny question, right? Do you really exist? And do I really exist? Now, this was a question that was asked from the Buddha on point, but the Buddha refused to give any answer to this question. Buddha kept silent to this question. The reason why the Buddha kept silent was not because he did not know about anything about this, but the Buddha said that by answering these kind of questions will lead to a lot of wrong views, will lead to a lot of problems, okay? Now, for an example, if one said like, okay, I do not exist or you do not exist, then there will be many questions and many problems. Then it will lead to many problems like, okay, if I do not exist, then who is the person who is experiencing all those karma? And who is the person who is being reborn? Okay. And also, if I don't really exist, what's the point of doing good and bad things, right? There's no point of doing good and there's no point of doing bad. Okay. And there's no point of becoming kind to people, and there's no point of helping people. So it will lead to many problems and many ethical dilemmas by answering these kinds of questions. And that is why the Buddha refused to give answers on point and directly to these kind of questions. But the Buddha explained that who you are, okay? That's what Buddha focused on. So the Buddha said that by answering these kinds of questions, by saying that you don't exist, you fall into one extreme, and that is called nihilism or complete annihilation. Now, one of the complaints that Buddha got in his time was the people complained him that he was a complete annihilator. Okay, he annihilates people by letting them into the nibbana. So people considered nibbana as a complete annihilation. But it is not a complete annihilation. The Buddha said that when you say that you don't exist, it falls under one extreme, and that is called nihilism, which was known as ucheda. And if you say that you exist, then it falls into the other extreme, and that is called the sarvata or the eternalism. What Buddha teaches you is, what the Buddha says, that my teachings lies in the middle. I teach you the middle way. What is the middle way? To find what you consider as who you are or true self, okay, and realize the nature of it. The Buddha did not say that you don't exist. The Buddha did not say that you exist. The Buddha said what one consider as self or I is subjected to change. Right? Now, what we consider as I? We consider as I is our eyes, our ears, our nose, our tongue, our body, and our mind. Okay, this is whom we call I. And also, what are the things that we consider as ours? The things that we see, the things that we hear, the things that we smell, and the things that we taste, and the things that we physically feel, and the things that we think. So all those things together we called as I or my things, okay, myself. So the Buddha said, just take a look at to these things, what you call self, and understand that all the things that you consider as yourself is subjected to change. It is ever changing. For an example, our eyes and our ears, nose, tongue, body, mind is ever changing, right? What we see in this world, what we experience in this world is subjected to change. Right here, right now, it is changing. So the Buddha said, what you consider as I or myself or mine is subjected to change. Then the Buddha said, if something is subjected to change, and that is suffering, okay, that leads to suffering. For an example, let's say we are having a good time and we are having good experiences and good feelings and happy feelings. So what we like to do, we like to feel, we like for them to be permanent. Okay, we like to feel good forever, but it is subjected to change. Okay, it is changing, and when it is changing, we suffer. And let's say we are having a bad experience or difficult experience, then with what we think is, okay, this pain, this suffering is going to last forever, but it is also subjected to change. So that is why the Buddha said, what you consider as you is subjected to change. And if something is subjected to change, it is suffering. And then Buddha said, if something is suffering, should it be considered as mine or I or myself? Turns out it is not. Why? Because if something is suffering, we should not consider it as ourselves. We don't like to consider it as ourselves, because as human beings, okay, as beings, we all like to be happy, not to suffer. Okay? And that is why the Buddha said, Buddha did not say that you do not exist. The Buddha did not say that you exist. The Buddha said what you consider as yourself, what you consider as I, is subjected to change, and it is suffering. And then, as it is suffering, it should not be considered as self. Now, this whole concept is called anatta in Buddhism. Anatta, the word anatta, is oftenly translated as no self. But rather, when you take this word no self, right, it gives the meaning that you don't exist. That is why many people say, okay, the Buddha said that you don't exist. No, Buddha did not say that you do not exist. The Buddha said what you considered as I or you is not yourself. Okay, it should not be considered as yourself, and that is what the concept of anatta. Rather than saying no self, it's much better to say that it is not self. And this is the whole idea behind the concept of anatta in Buddhism. So I hope you learned something new today. I wish you all, may all of you be happy and healthy. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to today's video. Today, from this video, I want to share with you one of the most inspirational and one of the most controversial statements from the Buddha. The Buddha said, Attahi attano nato, kohi nato parosya, attanahi sudantena, nathang labati dullabha. The Buddha said, Attahi attano nato, oneself is one's own refuge. Kohi nato parosya, how can another person become the refuge of another person? With enough self-discipline, right? With thorough self-discipline, one can attain one's own refuge. Now, in life, sometimes we wait for other people to come and change our life, come and save our life. But the Buddha says that this is a sad news, but it is the truth, that no one is coming to save you but yourself. No one can save you but yourself, right? And that is what Buddha teaches you. Try to save yourself by yourself. Now, even the Buddha said, even I cannot save you. I'm not your salvator. The Buddha said that I'm not your salvator. I cannot save you. I can show you the path. I'm a teacher. I'm the guider, but I cannot ascend you to your happiness. I cannot take you to your happiness. The Buddha said that what I have done is showing you the path, right? But by yourself, through yourself, you have to walk the path alone. And that is why in Buddhism, it is all about exploring who you are through yourself, by yourself. Okay? And that is why we have to remember that we are all alone in this world. There is no one that can save us. There are people who can help us. There are people who can guide us, but there is a limit. For an example, if you are going through a tough time in life, let's say you are having anxiety or depression, people can help you. People can tell you what to do and what not to do, and they can guide you. But by yourself, by all means, by yourself, you have to deal with that problem. You have to go through that situation and you have to heal yourself. And that is why I believe, in Buddhism believe, that there is nothing in this life that can destroy you other than your thoughts. And there is nothing in this world that can save you and that can heal you other than your thoughts and how you live in your life. And that is why in Buddhism, it is more given a big space about the self-discipline, to be self-disciplined and to practice it and to explore who you really are. So always remember that no one is coming to save you but yourself. No one can save you but yourself. Keep this in your mind and keep practicing the good things. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to another video. Sometimes, no matter how many people are around us, we feel we're the only person that's living in this world. We feel lonely. We feel left out. Loneliness can be dangerous if we did not know how to handle it. But one thing that we don't realize is the same loneliness that is killing us, the same loneliness that disturbs us, can be changed into a blessing in life. Always remember, every challenge and every difficult situation that comes into your life can be changed into a blessing if you know how to handle it. So from this video, let's talk about how can we deal with the loneliness in life and how can we change this loneliness to a blessing in our life. To deal with loneliness, first of all, we need to understand what is the reason behind the loneliness. Now, so many people think that the loneliness or the suffering that you feel depends on other people, right? Depends on an outer source. When people leave you, when you are separated from your loved ones, you feel lonely. But that is not always the case, because even in the middle of relationships, even when you're being with other people, even when you're being with your family members, you might feel lonely, because the loneliness does not occur because of other people or an outer source. Loneliness occurs when your interactions with other people does not match your desires or does not match your expectations. And that expectation creates the vacuum of that missingness in life, and that creates the suffering. So the Buddha says that the loneliness or this suffering does not depend on an outer source, but also it depends on an inner problem. So the Buddha mentions this in Dhammapada verse 338. The Buddha says, just as a tree, though cut down, sprouts up again if its root remain uncut and firm. Even so, until the craving that lies dormant is rooted out, suffering springs up again and again. So Buddha refers this to a tree, right? If a person comes to a tree and if he needs to remove the tree, so what he does is he cut down the tree from the trunk. Okay, no matter how many times you cut down the tree from the trunk, it will grow back. Because what is the reason? Because the root system is there still. As long as the root system is rooted on the ground, in the ground, the tree will grow back again and again. So the Buddha says, as long as the reason or the root cause for suffering is there, the suffering will spring up again and again. So what we have done in our whole life is trying to kill loneliness, but not the reason for the loneliness, right? So first of all, we need to understand that keeping your happiness, keeping your total happiness on other people and expecting other people to be around you totally and expecting other people to live up to your expectations is not going to happen all the time. And that creates the suffering and that creates the loneliness. So one thing that we need to understand is that loneliness does not always depend on an outer source. It depends on the cravings and the desires and the expectations that we are holding onto the interactions with other people. Okay, so luckily, because of this, we can change and we can convert this loneliness to a blessing. Okay, so how to do this? First of all, we need to change the perspective that we are holding onto the loneliness. So let me tell you a story about this. In the Buddha's time, before his enlightenment, he was practicing a practice called self-mortification. In this time, there were 5 monks who were helping to the Buddha. Now, these 5 monks had a lot of expectations on the Buddha that one day he will become enlightened and we will be also able to listen to his teachings and be enlightened. So he was practicing that, and they believe that the self-mortification or giving a lot of suffering to the body is the only way to find the liberation. But alas, one day the Buddha gave up this practice of self-mortification after practicing it for a long time. But the Buddha gave up this practice by understanding that this is no longer going to help him. And now all the expectations were destroyed. And these 5 monks were disappointed about the Buddha. So what they did, they left the Buddha and they went to Varanasi. And what happens to the Buddha was all alone in the middle of the jungle. He was abandoned. But here's the thing. He was not lonely. He was alone, but he was not lonely. Why? Because that loneliness, that silence, and that not being with around other people gave him the time to focus more into himself, right? So one thing that we need to understand is that when we feel lonely, it is an opportunity for us to focus on ourselves, right? It is a better time for you to focus on other people, because most of the time when we are too much around other people, we don't get much time to be with ourselves, be in our own company. So one thing that we need to understand is that loneliness creates the time and opportunity for you to focus more on yourself. Okay, so if you hold on to that view and think that, oh, now I am lonely and then now I am alone, but now this is the chance for me to focus on my inner values, so that you can build up your inner values, and you can care more about yourself, and you can focus on your what mistakes that do I have inside my life, what should I do and what should I practice. The more you focus onto yourself, you can develop and you get the chance to develop your inner habits and good values into you, so that it creates a better personality inside you. So understand that the loneliness or not being around other people is not always a suffering. It is an opportunity for all of you to build up a better life. So what you have to do, get this time and take this time and take this opportunity for you to be more focused into yourself and to practice this self-love, self-compassion, and also to build up good habits in your life. If you understand this way of dealing with loneliness, the loneliness will become a blessing to your life. And one day you will thank for that loneliness, because it created who you are today. So understand that loneliness does not always depend on other people. It always depends on what weave you're holding onto this experience in life. So be more focused onto yourself, into yourself, and create a better life for you. Namo Buddhaya.